Okay, there we go. Okay, who just came in? Was that Sister Charlotte? I'm like, yeah, Sister Charlotte.
Walaikum salam. I'm at work, so I'm on mute.
Okay, no problem. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so we did diagnosis part 1, and today we're gonna continue where we left off at, getting into the demo kit aspect of the concept. I believe Sunday we went over the concept of inputs and outputs, correct?
Yes.
And we looked at inputs and outputs as a cycle of action, and we related the inputs from a Dianetic standpoint as the implants. That same concept with regards to teachings would be the needle in the brain. And as a result, the output that it produces is called aberration, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Today, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of it using 2 basic equations, and it's an equation that we should all be familiar with. We're going to look at one of the actual facts from our student enrollment actual facts, look at it as an equation, and we're going to use it as a demo kit to understand the concept of inputs and outputs with regards to the implants that were given to us when we were children and how it produces the aberrated behavior that we have now as adults. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And again, because I can't see everyone,
Yes,
I gotta go based on the feedback.
Yes, sir.
And there's gonna be one part of the book I'm gonna ask someone to read. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna apply this tech to our self-improvement study guides to extract some more information from the wisdom that the minister has blessed us to receive. Let me go here. Get this first. That's it right here. Okay. Hopefully we can get to it. Let's see. Okay. I wanted to begin with this quote. This was something I just came across as I was going through my extension courses. And this I felt was very, very interesting. And to parse through this one little quote, I was blessed to see something in it that would connect to the teachings and give us a different viewpoint of what we have received. And L. Ron Hubbard says this, there's a course called The Factors. It's the course that takes place after the Philadelphia doctorate course. And he says this, he says, the universe is a big joke, but this universe was a big mystery. This universe has methods of perceiving and hidden influences in it. If it has hidden influences in it, then it gives you something that has to be understood. And if it's something that has to be understood, then you're in a bad way, because then you can think about it. It isn't something then you understand. It's something you can be. Can you be part of the universe? Boy, I'll say you can. Now, does anyone have any questions or any thoughts or anything that comes to mind based on that paragraph?
I remember the minister saying the universe was like a mammary gland,
Mm-hmm.
like a breast, and anything that like you project out there, it it would give it to you, like a mother's breast.
Mm-hmm.
And And then I was listening to Wayne Dyer, and he was saying that we're part of the universe. You know, like we're connected to it, and we don't um like pull on it like the baby pulls on the mother's breast.
Mm-hmm.
He was saying, the
Okay.
minister was saying. So that's what I remember as you reading about. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. That's right. That's going right in the direction where we intend to take this topic today. Anyone else before we go forward?
Brother Lukman, I can't raise my hand. I'm
Okay.
driving.
That's fine. That's fine.
But what comes to mind when you read that is, you know how we are the macrocosm of the microcosm? We are
The other way
everything.
around.
We are the microcosm of the macrocosm.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So we are it. We are all of it, and all of it is me.
Mm-hmm.
As you know how in Christian, I don't know, in esoteric teachings they say as above, so below.
Yes, ma'am.
We are all interconnected. We are the alpha and the omega.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what comes to mind from the study group.
Yes, ma'am. And you actually quoted, you partially quoted a video clip I'm going to show of the minister where he actually says exactly what you just brought up. So everyone seems to be in sync with this paragraph. Anyone else? All right, let's get to it. So L. Ron Hubbard speaks about the mystery of the universe. And basically he's saying is, and this is how I interpret it, that the universe has two mysteries. One, he said, was the universe has methods of perception, meaning it's a living entity. Does that make sense? In the esoteric practices, they call it the cosmological consciousness. Okay, the universe actually has a consciousness behind it that is all-pervading and eternal. Let's see, someone else just came in. Okay, and then he mentions a hidden influence. These are the two key mysteries that he speaks about in this particular extension course. He says these two must be understood. He says, but if we just think about these elements, we're in a bad way. So if we're studying the universe, meaning mathematics, science, physics, chemistry, astronomy, cosmology, astrophysics, botany, biology, if we're just studying these subjects to think about them, then we're in a bad way. That's the wrong way to look at this thing. He says we must be the universe in order to understand it. Does that make sense?
I was trying to figure out what's the joke because he said it's a big joke, and I'm trying to see which one of these is the punchline.
Well, the joke of the universe is, and this is just based on my understanding of what I have studied up to this point, the joke of the universe is that the mesh universe is designed to keep all this hidden from us. The mesh universe, let's see how I can put it. The mesh universe is striving to remain as cause, and we remain as effect. And with that in mind, if we always think the universe is greater than ourselves, then we can never really become God. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's take the word universe and shrink it down a little bit, because he says there's three universes. He says there's your universe, there's someone else's universe, and then there's the universe. So now each one of us look at our own individual universe, because my universe is not the same as your universe, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
The way I perceive reality and the things that are taking place in my circumference is not the way, may not fully be the way that you perceive certain things. And what's in my circumference is going to be different than what's in your circumference. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my world, my circumference is mine. And if you take the word universe and you shrink it down to your environment, the circumference of your planet, we know the planet is 24,896 miles. We know the universe has a certain circumference, but the circumference of our universe is based on where our mind state is and what we are doing in our own environment. And in our universe, our environment, there's methods of perception and there's hidden influences. And that is, and the hidden influences and the perceptions, our mesh universe is designed to strive to rule over us. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Look at the lesson. I think it's the 38th lesson, and lesson number 2. Why did Allah create devil? Okay, so we have a universe that our own environment has been placed in such a way to control us. In Dianetics, we might call that restimulation. We might call it valence. But we have to become the God of our universe, meaning we have to take control of our reality. The first universe we have to control is this universe right here. Okay, this sun and all these systems that are revolving around this sun, we have to control this first. And when we begin to control this universe, then we begin to control the universe outside of self. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If we look at that on the level of a tone scale, the bottom part of the tone scale would be our own physical body. The next stage up would be our immediate surroundings. And then higher up on the tone scale would be the universe outside of ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
And part of the reason why we're unable to do the things that are coming to our mind outside of ourselves is because there's certain things going on inside our physical body that we have not mastered yet. So our inability to master this physical body is keeping us from conquering the external universe. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when we're saying universe, we don't necessarily have to look at the heavens and earth on that level. And that's where I had my misunderstood as I was studying, because every time you talk about the universe, I'm thinking of the universe outside, but there was a gradient that was missing. But when he started talking about the universe with regards to your own physical reality, then it started making sense. Okay, there's certain things certain deadlines I need to meet. There's certain things I want to do. However, my own shortcomings get in the way sometimes of me accomplishing the things that I want to accomplish while I'm on this planet. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I think that stands for all of us. We all have goals. We all have deadlines and dreams and aspirations and things that we want to accomplish. But when we look at why we have not accomplished those things yet, I think we can all admit that the fault or the reason why we haven't accomplished these things, if we're honest, it all boils down to ourselves. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But even with that, it's
Assalamu
not.
alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry that I couldn't raise my hand. I'm on a dial-in
Okay, go ahead, brother.
connection today.
Yes, sir.
But as I've been listening, does time factor into this in the sense that our universe, I'm thinking of the minister teaching us how in preparation for the coming of the devil, we bury our technology. And I'm thinking of bury in the context of being hidden, so that what's in us, in our minds, has actually been hidden so that the enemy couldn't make use fully of what's in us. And that now we're in the times, thanks be to the coming of Master Fard Muhammad, that those hidden things are now able to express themselves. So is that a component that we are just now in that time that we are able to access certain aspects of our universe?
It's I would say yes. And as you're speaking, this is the thought that comes to mind. Wouldn't it be ironic? Now the enemy is searching all over the planet looking for statues and buried temples and looking for all this information that's, as we're taught, is under the water, under the sand, under the jungle. And
Yes,
they're looking to locate all those things.
Mhm.
But we have to understand that those temples and those symbols and that technology did not create itself, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Now, wouldn't it be ironic? I'm thinking that this may be what it actually is. This is just my cognition. Wouldn't it be ironic that the very people who you have stepped upon for over 400 years, or really over 6,000 years, if you go back to the full history, the very people you have mistreated are those that actually hold the key for you to understand what's actually buried in those temples?
I believe that. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the people you have disrespected are the gatekeepers for the wisdom that basically is the foundation of the transformation of this world as we know it. Does that answer your question, Brother Wadu?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
No,
Thank you.
I think of it along the lines again of what Dr. Mona Harris shared with me, that there's a great wealth of wisdom that is stored in our DNA. And she said that as you raise the frequency of your thinking, the DNA is locked up because it has to coil up. And it coils up because it allows a large amount of data to be stored in a small space. But when these histones unlock, these protein molecules unlock, and it allows the DNA to uncoil so that it can begin the process of what's called protein synthesis, where you have what's called transcription, you have what's called translation, and then there's a component of the cell that begins to build the protein. There's an ancient wisdom that's recorded in each one of us. It's like each one of us is our own book. And when the enemy can keep our minds on Super Bowl and all this stuff that's low frequency thinking, then we never get an opportunity to access the ancient wisdom that's recorded. Now I'm gonna go out on a limb and say this, that since we came in the teachings, whatever year we came in the teachings, and I think more so perhaps within the past 2 or 3 years specifically, have any of you felt that there has been an increase of a higher level of wisdom that has been coming to you from within yourself?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you started the habit of writing down the thoughts that come to you and actually taking time and looking at these thoughts?
No, sir.
Okay. Now here's why I say this. This information that's coming to us, and I can't remember where I saw this at. It might have been something that someone said during one of the Zoom meetings. Our purpose, the information that's given to us specifically as it relates to the teachings, but it's based on how we interpret it and then represent this teaching. Our purpose for being is the foundation of our luxury, money, good homes, and friendships in all walks of life. So as we connect with our purpose, that is how we would receive the heaven which is designed for you and I. Our heaven is going to come from within ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So these cognitions that we're receiving, in my honest opinion, my humble opinion, I believe Allah is distilling upon us like seeds. The seed represent luxury, money, good homes, and friendships in all walks of life. But we have to toil the soil to nurture that seed in order to manifest the luxury, money, good homes, and friendships in all walks of life. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. The
Yes,
minister has his, and then he's gonna get an addition too. But all of us, I believe, are destined for greatness. There's a quote, I think it's in I want to say Our Savior Has Arrived. And the Most High Elijah Muhammad said that we'll have more money and more homes than we can even handle. And I've heard one quote where I believe it's Fall of America, Our Savior Has Arrived, where he says something along the lines, and I'll get the actual facts on this, where we'll have so much wealth it'll scare us. And I told one brother, I said, well, I want to be scared to death then. Scare me to death. Okay. I firmly believe, though, and I'm speaking just for myself, that one of the reasons why we don't have the wealth yet is because an aberrated mind plus wealth, a fool in his money will part, correct?
Yes, sir.
correct, correct.
So Allah is preparing us, I believe, for our luxury, money, good homes, and friendships in all walks of life by first removing the aberrated mind.
Yeah.
Because once the aberrated mind is removed, then when we get the wealth, we know what to do with it. Okay.
Exactly. You know, Brother Luke,
Go ahead.
Brother Jabril was saying that we had to get used to luxury. You know, we may need to go and look at you know where we considered rich people. You know, just to be in that zone, because you know when we've been where we've been for a minute, and to not have that anymore, but to move up, I say a little higher, you know, on the tone scale and in life, you know, where it won't be, look what I got. Look,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that attitude, like I'm not poor anymore. I got this. And we would have a balance and not be crazy, because
Mm-hmm.
we got money now. I got money now. So you know, why you even talking to me?
Exactly.
You would talk to somebody. Yes, sir. I was thinking about that as you was talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
We're being prepared
Yes, sir.
for luxury, money, good homes, and friends in the walks of life, but this aberrated mind's got to be removed so we don't make the same mistake.
Yes, sir.
You know, so we don't go out and buy the $10,000 iPhone and that's crazy. Whenever when I think about the amount of wealth, the first thought that comes to my mind is, how many people can I help with this? What can I do to help people get back to where they need to be so they can become independent?
Do
To
you
have
remember?
5 and 6 and 8 or 9 cars, to me, cars are just not my thing. You know, I will have probably a gold encrusted chessboard. I can tell you that. You know, but all these other things, no, I wouldn't have that, because I don't spend money on myself now as it is.
You know, Brother Luke, Muhammad Ali, I was reading that he wanted to open up a chain of Champ burgers instead of McDonald's. He wanted to do, you know, the Champ burgers, you know, where you would have a Champ burger like McDonald's in every city,
Mm-hmm.
and how that didn't go down. That's
Mm-hmm.
all. That's all I was thinking about.
Me,
Yeah.
me personally, I have a lot of ideas of things I want to do specifically with regards to children, because my father was always the type of person that took time to help children. My father, it's just a kind of a sidebar, but this is kind of where my mind is going. He would coach Pop Warner football. And I remember specifically, this was back around 1981 or 82. There was one, I can't remember his name, but his family was so poor that he was wearing his older brother's football shoes, and they were probably 2 or 3 sizes too big for him. And the kids would make fun of him because the shoes were too big. And I remember my father going and buying a brand new pair of cleats and calling him to the car, pulling him aside, giving him these cleats and telling him, don't tell anyone where you got these cleats from. That's the kind of thing my dad did. And my mother was the same way. She was always helping people. So it's just part of the programming, I think, that allow you to prepare me for being a student of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, in that my number one goal is to help people. And my middle name, which I didn't give to myself, it was something that was given to me, Abdul Nasir. Abdul Nasir means the helper. I receive satisfaction by helping other people. That's where I get my payment from. I like to see the expression of other people's faces when they receive something. It betters them, and then I'm thankful to Allah that I was the conduit through which He was able to help someone else. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So when I receive my millions, I already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to just try to continue to do the work and help people as I can. And outside of that, how can you have billions of dollars and there's still children that aren't getting lunch? They don't have, the school system doesn't have enough food to feed the children for lunch, but you got billions of dollars. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It's the American way.
And that's why America is falling. Anyway,
Mhm.
Sister Shayla, Sister Angela, and then Sister Tina. Sister Shayla, you're up. You there, Sister Shayla?
Yes. When the brother was speaking, like the these cities, these monuments buried in us, you see that in the babies every day. You see the babies of today come up with things that nobody have taught them. Not a lesson of Islam have ever been put through them. Well, maybe, I don't know. But they come up with these clear, concise solution to problem without even thinking. I saw my nephew stood at a window and said, this child is what, 5? And he just says, wait a minute. That house doesn't have a chimney. That one doesn't have a chimney. That one don't have not even a hole. How can a Santa Claus come in? He like, no, there's something wrong with this story. Now, his parents are stun Christians. And immediately they looked at me and said, what did you tell him? I never told him a word. And I just said to myself, look at this. I was an adult mother of 2 children before I will ask a question of that level.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so I said, oh, these are those babies that the Quran speak about, the youth, the Joshua generation that don't have the teachings yet. I can't imagine what would they do once they get it in. Now, he knows that it's buried in the original people. This is what he's looking for, the God particle through DNA. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows where it's buried. He's looking out there, but he's also looking at Black people. This is why DNA banks are so easy to turn our DNA into, because he know what he's looking for. He absolutely know. This man is not a fool. He know he's going out and he has plans, but Allah is the best of planners. So I say to the believers, your babies are those cities that been buried, where the wisdom is buried.
Ooh.
Inside of us, there is some, but the babies of today, the babies of today have no fear. They speak their mind. They have not been showered with wisdom. It comes from within. It just does. If you listen to them, they are so profound in their analogy of something that they watch. They can be very futuristic, but those are the ideas that the time has come. So absolutely, I agree. It's buried within as it is without.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And if we look at vaccinations as a way of keeping the books closed,
absolutely,
then which books would remain open?
Correct.
All of those that listen to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Those books will stay open. Most definitely.
Because Brother Lukeman, I'm sure that the believers on this call, if they really go back into their memory banks of when they was children, and the question that entered their mind, well, I don't know about you all, but I was not allowed even to think those things, or I couldn't say them. But the questions that little children had 40 years ago are the question that the messenger, that Master Farad Muhammad came and answered for each and every one of us. All mystery will disappear in the light and the brightness of Master Farad Muhammad. So if we was thinking on the level that we was thinking, and we was told we was crazy, or that we was bad, or that we, at least I was demonic, because I always had religious questions that didn't make sense. Can you imagine what's going through these new babies that have gotten Farrakhan in just like a glimpse on what the outcome of this gonna be? Yes, I see the coming of the new world, like right there. My toes are entered. Your toes are entered. I'm in a good mood. Praises be to Allah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. I see we have a Daniel Drack that just came in. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, my name is Dr. Dan Drock. I was invited by Dr. Salam. Can you see me or hear me?
Dr. Salam, Dr. Salam, Dr. Salam.
From St. Louis. Brother Dr. Salam, J.A. Salam from St. Louis.
Not familiar, but you're more than welcome. Thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, he had a invitation he shot to me. Thank you.
Okay. And we have Sister Ania. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Ania.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you?
I'm fine. I invited Dr. Salam.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, and he asked me could he invite other people. So
okay. Mr. How do you pronounce your last name? Is it Drock?
Yes, yes, Drock.
Okay. Are you a part of the Church of Scientology by any chance?
I am.
Oh, good, 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 good.
I'm not a staff member. I'm a parishioner in Chicago.
Oh,
living in Milwaukee, north of Milwaukee currently.
Okay. Glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Let's see, Sister Angela, you're next.
I'm studying to be a Hubbard dynamic auditor as we speak here. So
oh, great. Then this would be right in line with what you're doing.
Yes, very interesting. Thank you, sir.
Sister
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I wanted to, I guess, interconnect this conversation because I really don't believe in things happening by chance. So I was out with the sisters Saturday after class, and we were dialoguing about coming into more clear aspects of ourselves in regards to these things that baffle science. Like we were talking about the movie Lucy, and you know, how come we are just acting off a percentage of our brain power? So we discovered in the dialogue this buried thing has a lot to do, especially with Sister Shayla and the children. When I go back to the childhood version of Angela, she was less hidden. And the thing with children, when you really watch them closely, because most people think children are flighty. 1 minute this and the next minute that, and they truly are not. When something holds a child's attention, as we can now see with these laptops and video games and things of that nature, handheld electronics, I can watch my 4-year-old niece sit in one place for hours. But when I was younger, I was a more nature child, so I can explore nature the entire time. I was outside that my mom would let me. So I looking at that, I linked this to the clarity of us today. And of course, there are aberrations, there are engrams, there are things that bury this ability in us. So when we learn to clear the noise, and aside from that, those three things, it's the day-to-day hustle and bustle. And I noticed I got the, I talked about the silver mind control method, and I talked about the 7 spiritual laws of success. Those 2 books, in the little that I read, I've been able to do things that I could not do before. I'm talking about, I read, I think up to one chapter, let's say about 30 pages in one book, and I read about maybe 30 pages in the other book. And I notice if I take that same focus, as I take that time and I silence some of this noise in my life and in my mind and focus on one thing at a time, the ability is never lost. It's just buried under a whole lot of stuff that makes up my universe. And let me just touch on that universe thing that you talked about. I was with one of the sisters again, and she says, now this is a key in a restimulator, and I will have a somatic reaction to this, right? She says, oh, my ears have been bothering me, and my throat, I need something for my throat. Now the ear thing, I got past. But when she said that throat, I immediately got keyed in. Now it's like caught up in, I would say, purgatory, for lack of words. It didn't come all the way out, but I do have a swollen lymph node from nothing. There's nothing in, I don't have any pain. I don't have anything wrong, but I know it came from what that sister said to me. So our universes collided. And it really was not my reality, it was hers. But because I'm familiar with it, I made her reality mine. So I just wanted to share that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. It's very interesting you said that, because we're going to go over briefly a concept dealing with word combinations that L. Ron Hubbard speaks about, but specifically with what you had just shared. In the Philadelphia Doctor course, this is one thing that L. Ron Hubbard speaks about. He says that when you look at specific body locations of injuries, basically what he says, and I find this so interesting, because the science of today, there's 2 doctors that I study, I'm studying thoroughly. There's one called Dr. Candace Pert, who has a book called Molecules of Emotion that we spoke about before. And then there's another doctor who I follow very closely named Dr. Gabor Mate. He has a couple of books, but the newest book he has is called The Myth of Normal. And both of these books provide research in the modern context that justify what L. Ron Hubbard was teaching back in the 50s. And again, I'm always going to say this, I believe this 100%, that his ideas, his postulates, and his cognitions were ahead of the science at that time. science is verifying what he taught back then. So I don't understand how doctors today are talking about what they discovered, because he already discovered it. That's one thing. But the one thing that L. Ron Hubbard talks about in the Philadelphia Doctorate course is that when you have a specific location on the body where there's an injury, that's where the trauma has been recorded.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
So if you're talking about the lymph nodes, that is a specific, that's almost like a filing cabinet for aberrated information. The body is pointing us towards the direct, and holistic medicine says the same thing. When you study the body from a holistic way, in a holistic way, the body, if you learn the language, is telling you what the injury is, where it originated from. And the specific location is telling you where the injury took place. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, it's this, he was ahead of his time. He was definitely ahead of his time. Go ahead, Sister Tina.
Brother Lukman,
Yes.
Brother Salam said that he was waiting to get in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at two screens here. Thank you. I'm DJing two screens right now. Thank you, Sister Ania. Yes, Dr. Salam.
Yes, thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Yes.
All right, Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. When you were speaking on aberration, the aberrated mind, and luxury, friendships, good homes, friendships in all walks of life, good homes, money, that always reminds me of the scripture where it says, seek ye the kingdom of God first, then all these things will be added. And when you were speaking on the good works that your father and your mother did, and it was instilled in you to help others, that's part of the kingdom of God, because it made me think of, what's that, the third dynamic? Really
group.
Big group. Yeah, and the fourth dynamic, man and mankind, right?
Yes, exactly.
So to have ARC with all the dynamics is what the optimum human being, so to speak, right? Yeah. So in seeking the kingdom of God, and its righteousness, that's coming out of all those negative thoughts, all those aberrated thoughts. So scripture just reminds me of that. And works of, and the works of good, is just a result of the kingdom of God. Yes, sir.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you. Before we go to Sister Angela, I just want to pose two questions. One to Dr. Salam and one to Mr. Druck. First, is it Dr. Druck? Is it Dr.?
Yes, I'm a doctor of dental surgery.
Dental surgery. Okay, I want to recognize that.
Yes,
and,
thank you, sir.
I might use some dentistry as a demo kit as we're talking.
Okay.
And Dr. Salam, what is your area of specialty, if you don't mind me asking?
That's organizational psychology. So I work with businesses and development of human beings primarily.
Okay, praise be to Allah. All right, I like where this is going. All right, Sister Angela.
Okay, really quick. I forgot this part. I wanted to clear the word money. And in one of the definitions, of course, we know it's a current medium of exchange in the form of coins or banknotes, coins and banknotes, okay. Then you have sums of money or plural monies, a statement of all monies paid into and out of an account. This third one is one I want to use. The assets, property, and resources owned by someone or something, right? So I believe Sister Denise mentioned Brother Jabril earlier, and he gave us a lesson on luxury, money, good homes, and friendships in all walks of life. And he pointed it out in scriptures that these things were called talents. And our talent, like Sister Tina just said, righteousness. There's going to come a time, and I believe the doctor, one of the doctors, the dentist, said that he's a parishioner. And this is science-based religion. Dianetics through the soul, right? So it's becoming clearer for us. The biggest misconception in all religions is understanding the word. I don't know how much we apply the power of being clear to the word. However, Brother Jabril, and this is before I knew anything about being an auditor or Scientology, he gave us a key with mastering the word. And big on, definition. So I see it hand in hand. So I started taking notice of how to make a clear delivery, because when the time does come, there are going to be these people that go around teaching that are the only ones that can unlock certain things. And people will pay their their medium of currency. And doesn't necessarily mean paper money. It can be, I was told that we will make our weight in gold for a class, to teach one class. So the amount is just so limitless. At the same time, with the spirit you shared, with the help, and I think we all have some of that in common. That's why we have to be, I think that spirit is the prerequisite in order to be blessed, bountiful, and have no limit. You have to have that spirit that you truly desire to help, and that you won't see someone in need. Because in the perfect world, in the true kingdom of God, is only peace. Peace. There's no, I got a pursuit of happiness. You're in happiness. It is perpetual all the time. So some things may not even be a necessity because of the way this kingdom is set up. But I definitely see the correlation between the science and the word, and the clarity in said word.
Yes, ma'am. If someone could pull out who has their supreme wisdom handy?
Sister Angela.
Sister Angela, could you read Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 16?
Give me 1 second, yes, sir.
Yeah.
I got it, Lamar. I keep it on my phone. Thank you, sir. Hey, Lost Found lesson number 2, right?
Yes, ma'am. Question number 16, I believe it is.
Okay. I'm getting Cerner. Number 6. You can open that, sir. Thank you. Not the 5%.
Yes.
Okay. Who is the 5% in the poor part of the earth? Answer: they are the poor, righteous teachers who do not believe in the teaching of the 10% and are all wise and know the living God is, and teach that the living God is the Son of Man, the supreme being, the Black man of Asia, and teach freedom, justice, and equality to all the human family of the planet Earth, otherwise known as civilized people, also Muslim and Muslim sons.
Okay, so the job of the 5% is to teach all of the human family. So we're not limited.
Right.
Okay. And again, I still have to find this document. I have it here somewhere. But L. Ron Hubbard refers to suppressive persons, SPs. He refers to them as the 10% also. I found that to be
sense. When we look at the theory of just all of the, well, let's say this, I would call a suppressive person and I mean capital THE, the epitome of the hidden third party.
Yes, good way to look at it.
In the conflict resolution, this is what keeps humanity at odds. There's a hidden third party of a suppressive personality that is stopping the natural. We have a natural link. Remember, these things had to be taught. Even though people were different, they had to be taught a certain way in order for this supremacist mindset to exist.
Yeah.
And it's not just, the way the world is now. I just saw 5 Black men beat to death a Black man. So that's the hidden third party in that situation. The mind, the suppressive person's mindset. So I can see it clearly in all dynamics.
And we have to remember that that mindset was a teaching. That's in Lost Found Muslim. That's what lesson number 1, question number 4.
Yeah.
Taught the devils.
Right. Right.
Okay, I'm trying to DJ here. Okay, so now I got 2 turntables going right now.
Come on, DJ.
You're the universe, and we haven't even gotten to the subject matter yet. We're just okay. So when you deal with the quote by L. Ron Hubbard, he says the universe has a mechanism of perception and a hidden influence. These 2 concepts actually align with Islam and our teachings. So when you look at method of perception, that is al-Basir, the all-seeing. So what he's saying is, if we translate it from the language of Dianetics to the language of our teachings, we're saying that the universe is all-seeing, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the method of perception of this universe is through whom? We could say through you and I, because we say that Allah is the all-eye-seeing, yes?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. And then when you look at the hidden influence, something is hidden. In Islam, that's called al-Batin, the hidden or the knower of hidden things. So in the quote by L. Ron Hubbard, taken from the factors, we have these 2 attributes that manifest themselves. So you and I are not the mesh universe that we study. We are the elements of that which is perceiving and what is hidden. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's the whole theta mesh theory. He says that you have to understand theta, you have to understand mesh, and then you have to understand the relationship between the 2. And where we fall short is when we perceive ourselves as this physical body that we exist in, then we miss the boat. This physical body is just a tool that we're using to exist in this 3-dimensional space and time. We represent that essence inside the mesh body. And we in Islam, from the Holy Quran perspective, the word is called the nafs, which is the Arabic word for mind. In the language of the teachings, we say God. In the language of Dianetics, they use the thetan and the 8th dynamic, but really we're all saying the same thing. We're just using different words, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Absolutely.
sir.
So when we understand that the words, the symbolism might be different, but the concepts that undergird the concepts are the same. Remember, in mathematics, we have what's called the law of substitution. So if I say A plus 5 equals 7, then we know A equals what? Come on, mathematicians.
Two.
A equals 2, right?
Yes, sir.
If I say B plus 3 equals 5, then B equals what?
2.
So I can substitute A and B into those opposing equations and I still get the correct answer, correct?
Absolutely.
So once we grow beyond the emotion of words and understand, get past the specific word, but look at what the word represents, that is the same principle that you find in mathematics. In two places, you have what's called the law of substitution, and then you have what's called the transitive law. And we'll get into that more at another time. But once we get past the words, we'll realize that in Islam, the teachings, L. Ron Hubbard, it's all in harmony with one another. It has ARC to the 1000.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So then he says, so dealing with this mystery. So when we study the universe, this is not his quote, this is mine. So when we study the universe, the natural laws which govern it, and the equations that assist us in explaining the phenomena, we're actually learning how to increase our perception so that we can learn more about the self, which comes from this hidden influence. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The Thetan, the L. Ron Hubbard says this in A History of Mankind, and he says it in different places, but he says the time track is 76 trillion years old. Our teachings tell us that God created himself 76 trillion years ago. That's not a coincidence. And then the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says in Message to the Black Man that that first God that created himself back then, we know that he's no longer here, but his person exists in us today, correct? So the person that's in you and I is a part of that first God that is 76 trillion years old. It's just that we forgot who we are, but that was done by design. But now we are beginning to wake back up to our purpose. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. So our body might be, even though my physical body is in its mid-50s, it feels like it's around 60 and some change with the way the fire department has taken away my health. But the essence of who I am is trillions of years old. I just have to come back into that realization, or we have to come back into that realization. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you and I are that which is perceiving. Okay. You and I are that which is perceiving.
Right.
You and I are that which is hidden. Okay. Now, this is in harmony with what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us. So if you were to look at A Torchlight for America, page 48 to page 51, this is my favorite part of the book. One of the things that he says is a new school public system should relate the curriculum to the self.
Yeah.
When we see the curriculum as an outgrowth of self, then we can identify with the curriculum giving us the incentive to learn.
Absolutely.
Now, Sister Shayla, you had mentioned something on the last call about admiring one another, correct? Do you remember that, Sister Shayla? You still with us? Or did she leave? Oh, she left. Well, she had, do you remember Sister Shayla mentioning the importance of us admiring one another?
Absolutely. I do. I remember.
Okay. In the factors, the new concept that L. Ron Hubbard evolved the tech up to was a concept he called the universal solvent, which he said can be used to basically break down everything in the universe. And he said that that concept is called admiration. And then he goes into the dynamic. I don't have time to go into it now because I'm still learning about it myself. But the word was admiration. And it's like taking ARC and summing it up into one word, admiration. Okay.
Do you think that's what the children do?
Well, if you clear the word admiration, you know, children are curious about everything. And basically what L. Ron Hubbard is saying is once there's admiration, you already produce what's called 2 terminal points. You have or anchor points. So when you admire something, you automatically are setting up affinity, reality, and communication.
Right.
Okay. And when you do that, you're gaining back some of that theta. So here's an example. Here's an experiment. Take someone who rubs us the wrong way or gets on our nerves or gets under our skin. Because really, if they're getting under our skin, isn't that the same as re-stimulation?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But now if we find something about that person to admire, L. Ron Hubbard calls it admiration processing. If you find something about that person to admire, what does it do to the re-stimulation?
Take the charge off of it.
It takes the charge of it, and then what happens to the tone?
Oh, it goes up. Absolutely.
Tone goes up. And all it is that the change of viewpoint. So when you look at the minister, doesn't he always talk about how he admires this brother for doing this? Even when the person might have said something bad about him, he says, I admire the brother's gift, or I admire this, I admire that. The minister always carries his own atmosphere with him.
Right. It's a form of mercy, actually, because we're studying it right now, mercy.
Isn't it Al-Rahman and Al-Rahim?
Yeah.
Okay. So I could be driving. And my wife and I, we go back and forth with this. Someone can be driving like an idiot. And I remember this one book I read, it's called Don't Sweat the Small Things, and They're All Small Things, years ago. And the one thing I do is I try to change my mindset. When that person is driving crazy, instead of taking it like they personally did it because they didn't like Brother Lukman, they don't even know who Brother Lukman is.
Yes.
Instead of taking it personal, I say to myself, they must have an emergency. Because I know if I had an emergency, I'd be cutting people off too. And when we can change our mindset, now what happens? Now we're not re-stimulated. What did we do? We brought our own atmosphere to that situation. Go ahead, Sister Charlotte.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to bear witness to Sister Shayla's, that whole thought of, what was it? Praising or appreciation. I actually tried that with a situation I had a few days ago, and I got re-stimulated very badly, you know, with a conversation with another sister. And after we hung up, I was just, head was hurting, body was aching, the whole 9 yards. So then when she called me back, I guess to refinish re-stimulating me, because I guess she thought she hadn't done enough, I did this whole appraisal thing. And I praised her, everything that she threw at me, I gave appraisal behind it. And I felt so much better after that conversation. And when she called me back the third time, it was as if she just hadn't cussed me out 2 days before. So that whole appraisal and appreciating, it worked for me. I just wanted, that was my win for this week.
Praise be to Allah. Are you finished? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
It's about beneficence and mercy. And I'll give you a prime. It's like something I went back on my time track for a split second. Years ago when my middle daughter, this was around 1998, she had gotten in trouble in school. And I went to the school and the teacher told us what happened. The first thought that came to my mind is when I get home, I'm gonna tear your little behind up. That's all I could think about. So I got her home and she knew it. She could see the look in my face. And she went to her bedroom and I went in there and I was about to tear her behind up. I said, you know, because how could you don't listen to what I tell you? And then as God is my witness, it was like a voice in my head says, well, you don't listen to me, but I don't do you like that. And I sat there and I was frozen. I couldn't do anything.
It's humbling, ain't it?
It was humbling. It was like a voice in my head said, you don't always listen to me, but I don't
Come
punish you
on.
in the way that you're about to punish your daughter.
Come on, come on.
And so I had to stop. So I say that to say, number one, all of our righteousness is as filthy rags in the eyes of the Lord. That's number one. And number two, we're taught that if Allah was to punish us for our sins, wouldn't be one person left on the planet, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how many times have we done things that was straight up against the teachings, but Allah still saw fit to still give us blessings? And then the thing is, he knew we were going to do that before we did it, but he still blessed us anyway, correct?
Magnificent, isn't it?
Okay, so if we take on that mindset, it's not only for the person that we're showing beneficence and mercy to, it's really a healing for us, because now we're not carrying around that re-stimulation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
All right. The minister says, in the Muhammad University of Islam school system, our students' learning is facilitated because they identify with the subjects. They are taught that they are the subject. So I want to play this little small clip, and then we're going to move forward. We still got enough time. Let's see what happens. All right, come on. Tell me this thing didn't work properly. Oh, there we go. Wait a minute. I must have a little, there we go.
A test of students coming out of the 8th grade measuring their competency in mathematics. Now, why mathematics? Most Black people say, like mathematics, it's too hard, it's so difficult. And what we don't realize is we are a mathematical creation. What is this? What is that? No rhythm in us. And what is rhythm? Mathematics, that's what it is. It's on the street, moving, brother. What is that? That's mathematics, that's rhythm, that's balance. You got it all, but you just don't know what you got, and you need the right training, the right teaching to bring it out. You just a clot. You need the right teaching and the right teachers that love you enough to bring out what God has already put within. Listen, not only am I mathematics, I am law. I function by means of law. I get up in the morning obeying the law. I walk obeying the law. I am law. How come I can't master what I already am? I am biology. I am botany. I am zoology. I am oceanography. I'm all of it. I am the microcosm in the macrocosm. I am the universe in miniature. How come I can't master what I already am?
I love it. Love it. Okay, so our learning objectives for today.
Right.
We're going to use mathematics as a demo kit. So, Dr. Drake, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Like like Dracula.
Drock, okay, Dr. Drock. Well, we know you're not a vampire, so
That's right.
Dr. Drock, okay. What we do is, when we do extension courses, or not extension courses, but we do courses at the org, we're familiar with the concept of the demo kits.
Okay.
But what we do is there's we coined a saying about a couple of years ago that the universe is the demo kit of God. The universe is the demo kit of Allah. So what we do is we take mathematical equations, we take formulas, we go into the atom, we deal with quantum physics, but we use the atoms, we use the equations as demo kits to explain aberrated behavior. Okay, so in our classes, we have done everything from arithmetic up to algebra and trigonometry.
Absolutely.
Okay, all of these we use as a demo kit to illustrate concepts that L. Ron Hubbard blessed us to receive. So we have our own demo kits that we use. So we're going to use demo kits to explain inputs and outputs. Actually, part one of this has been uploaded. We actually use an electrical circuit, the voltage, the current. We used all that as a demo kit to explain demon circuits. Today, we're going to use a basic equation to illustrate the concept of inputs and outputs. We're going to look at word combinations. So, Sister Angela, you were right on point with what you had just shared, because that's right in sync with what we're going to discuss briefly. We're going to look at a concept called out of valence and how it relates to the supreme wisdom, because there's ARC between these concepts. And then we're going to find a connection with the self-improvement. And we're going to try to get all this done in a matter of 45 minutes, God willing. If not, there'll just be a part 3. So mathematics as a demo kit. We know that when you deal with equations or formulae, they're composed of elements called terms, correct? For the mathematicians. Okay. We know that some terms are called constant terms and some are called variable. Okay. When you deal with algebra, you're dealing with both type. You're dealing with constant terms, you deal with variable terms. In other words, some elements are known and some are unknown. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay. So whenever you're given an equation to solve, you have to be given certain data in order to figure out certain data, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here you have a cycle of action. You have a start, change, stop here. The equation is your start. Your understanding of the concept is what brings the change. And then based on the input, you produce an output, which is the stop. Yes, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So one of the basic rules is if an equation contains 3 terms, 2 terms must be known. Okay. If an equation contains 4 terms, 3 terms must be known. Okay. Interesting thing is the variable, the unknown part of the equation. If you clear the word variable, you're going to come to the word aberrant. Okay. And I believe L. Ron Hubbard talks about the hidden variable? He talks about it, I believe, when he talks about the held down 7. But the variable in an equation, the word variable, when you clear it, it gives you variation. It gives you the word fickle. So it's something that changes constantly, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. In our lessons, it talks about some of the currents are cold and warm and some are quick and what?
Changeable.
Changeable. Okay. So are we talking about atmosphere or are we talking about atmosphere?
Both.
Cold and warm, swift and changeable. Swift, when you look at L. Ron Hubbard, he asked the question, what is a test for sanity? He talks about communication lag index, meaning when you ask a question, how fast do you get a response?
Right.
Okay. That's a swift current, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
A changeable current, we could say is aberrative, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So lost found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 8. What makes rain, hail, snow, and earthquake? In that, you'll find the tech of Dianetics, how the mind operates when you look past. That's actually an equation. but I believe the Savior gave us the equation in the form of a picture. Does that make sense?
Right. I do too. Yes, sir.
Okay. So in other words, take the number of terms and subtract 1, and that tells you how many knowns are needed to solve the equation. So here we're going to use an example. We've seen this equation before, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What is this equation represent? Come on, mathematicians.
3 equals 2.
What's that
The
C stand
circumference
for?
of a circle.
Thank you,
Yeah.
brother. Was that Brother Wadu?
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, sir.
So C is the circumference. Okay. 2 is called a constant term because it never changes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No matter what circle you deal with, that 2 stays the same.
Mm.
And really pi
Yeah.
stays the same. Okay. 3.141. But R is your variable.
Right.
Okay. But in order to solve this equation, you have to have 3 out of the 4, which means you either have to know the circumference to figure out the radius, or you need to know the radius to figure out the circumference, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Therefore, this equation represents a cycle of change. Okay, we could say a cycle of action, but also we could say a cycle of change. Your start is whatever your input value is. Does that make sense?
Right. Mm-hmm.
The equation produces the change, and your answer or your output is the stop. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're using mathematics as a demo kit, not only to understand a cycle of action, but we're using a mathematical equation to allow us to better understand how a mind becomes aberrated. Okay.
Brother Lukeman,
Yes,
would you
ma'am.
just go over that last part again about the start, change, stop?
Okay. Start, change, stop. Once you understand a cycle of action, you can use that in anything that you study. And then if you look at the extended cycle, you have you have start, you have growth, you have conservation, you have decay, and then you have stop. Okay, that's the extended cycle. The first time I came across that cycle is in the fire service. When a building is on fire, it goes through those stages. You have what's called, someone starts the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then you have what's called the that's called the incipient stage. Then you have what's called the growth stage. Then you have what's called the fully evolved fire. That's the conservation stage. That's when that building, that room is fully engulfed in fire. Then we show up, hopefully, and we start to put the fire out. That's decay. That's called extinguishment. And then when the fire is out, that's called stop. Okay, so that's a cycle of action. The basic is start, change, stop. The extended is start, growth, conservation, decay, and then stop. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Does that answer your question, Sister Anya?
Well, you explained it differently. I was wanting you just to repeat what you had said. I got the last part when you said that the answer or the output is stop.
Okay. So when you finish an equation and you have the answer, that's your stop. But now if you get the wrong answer, what does that mean? That means there's a hidden variable in there that was misunderstood, correct?
Right. So could you just go over the start and the change so I can write that down?
Okay. So the start is whatever you have to input in order to start to solve the equation. That's your start. The equation itself is the change. Because what does an equation do? It actually, you put in a number and it transforms that number. A formula is also called a transformation. And then whatever your answer is, that's the stop. And if the answer is incorrect, then there's a hidden influence in there. There's a ridge that has disrupted the flow. Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Go ahead, Brother Wadu, Brother Doctor.
I had a quick cognition as you were explaining the elements of a fire, in that I thought about when we hear about there being hot spots after the extinguishing of the fire.
Yes, sir.
So in that instance, when you all still put water on the hot spots to keep them from reigniting, I would say that you all are acting as suppressors in that moment. And so that would be a positive for the suppressor. So a suppressor could actually, in some instances, be a positive factor if it's used in the right context.
Oh, yes, sir. Of course. Of course. Yeah, we are. That stage is called salvage and overhaul, where we're the main engram, which is the building on fire. We've reduced that fire down. Now all we have are little small locks and key-ins that we have to go find now and get and clear those little locks and stuff off. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Okay, so this equation contains 4 elements. 2 are known and 2 are unknown, which means we have to know one in order to figure out the other. Okay. So we use this to study our actual facts. So we look at the circumference of the Earth. So if the radius of the Earth is 3,963 miles, here's a question. How did I come up with the radius of the Earth? What did I have to do to get to that number?
You had to know the circumference.
Well, not necessarily. In our actual facts, we're given the diameter, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the diameter is what?
The diameter is 7,926 miles.
Okay, so the radius is what with respect to the diameter?
Radius.
Half.
Brother,
Oh, yeah.
brother up top is on mute. Brother, what's it? Maquis?
Isn't that any?
Brother Maquis, you're on mute. I saw your lips moving.
Oh no, brother. I'm following y'all.
Okay.
So I'm just following. I'm reading the notes. Thank you.
Okay, yes, sir. So radius is 1/2 the diameter. Okay. So now we know pi is 3.141, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we know that if you take that 141 and rearrange it, you get 114, which is the number of surahs in the Holy Quran, correct?
It is.
And also, 114 is the number of notes on an acoustic guitar. That's just, if you know how to flow down the whole body of the guitar, there's 114 placements, but that's a topic for another time. So then if we take C equals 2 pi r, now we can input numbers. And that's what it looks like. Pi is 3.141 and r is 3,963. So what did we do? We just took algebra and we converted it to arithmetic. And that's all algebra is. Algebra is you have certain letters that represent numbers that allows you to do other things that you can't do with arithmetic. Okay, so we have what's called a mathematical theology, correct?
Yes, sir, we do.
So this is kind of what we could call an algebraic theology. We're studying self and the knowledge of God through the language of algebra, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so when we do the math, we get these numbers, 6.282 times 3,963, which gives us those numbers. So the radius was the input that produced the circumference, which was the output. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. And being that we know that 24,896 miles is correct, we know that the flow of our thought went through that equation and did not hit a ridge, and therefore there was no dispersal, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Because L. Ron Hubbard talks about flow, ridges, and dispersals. That concept you can also use for anything that you study. Okay. Sister Ania.
Yes, so as you said that, I thought about ourselves as a sphere of influence and being the point inside the circle. And so when you said that the radius is the input that produces the output, the circumference. So the circumference would then be our sphere of influence that we have based on the distance of our radius. So I looked at it in those kind of terms. And so the more ARC that we have with Allah God, and the greater is going to be that the distance, you know, the greater the distance that we radiate out, that the greater reach of influence that we have.
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly right. And remember, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us, whoever controls the diameter of your thinking controls the circumference of your activity, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, because that's where I got it from. I got that. I take the minister's words and then I try to, for the mathematicians, you understand what I'm saying? I try to find the second and third derivative. I try to take the minister's words and take it a step out. Now, so that represents knowledge. Faith takes you outside the circumference that allows you to extend the radius to produce what? A new circumference, correct?
Yes, sir. Beautifully put.
Because now once you increase the circumference, now you have a larger surface area. And then if you take it on 3 dimensions, you have what's called a sphere of activity, yes?
Yes.
Okay, that all comes from the minister's words, not mine. I just added the mathematics to it, but this is based on his words. So the concept here is you have an input, you produce an output. You actually went through a cycle of action. And then based on that cycle of action, if you have the correct answer, because you always check the math to make sure your answer is right. That's the last step in doing any equation. You check your numbers. Then you realize that there's no ridge, therefore there was a flow and there was no dispersal. Now, many of us in the past have started studying certain subjects and then we stopped, correct? And that's because we hit a ridge. And then what did we do? We dispersed. Okay, L. Ron Hubbard says.
So what is ridge?
A ridge is something that blocks. Okay, I'll give you an example. Remember when we were younger, we would play, before video games, we had to play outside. Hide and go seek and tag and all those things. And then we would stop in the summertime and someone would have a garden hose and then we'd get a drink of water. And then one person would get a drink and then the person would fold the hose and the water would stop flowing. Okay, when you bend that hose, that's the ridge. The ridge is what interrupts the flow. And then you would wait till the person get down and then you open it up and spray them in the face, right? Okay, so the bend, the water is the flow, the bend is the ridge, which stops the flow. And then remember when you put your finger on part of it, it would spray out in all directions. That's the dispersal. That's a demo kit to understand those concepts, because as I'm saying it, you can see it. You can mock it up in your mind, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Okay? In everything we study, there's flow, there's ridge, and there's dispersals. Because in everything we study, when do we get frustrated? When we hit something we don't understand, that's a ridge. And L. Ron Hubbard says 9 times out of 10, that ridge is a misunderstood, correct?
That's right.
So it's a word that we went past that we don't understand. And so the whole rest of that page, we don't understand it. So our thought is not flowing through the concept anymore. When we go back and pick up that word, See, that word is like the variable in an equation. If you don't understand the variable, you can't solve the equation. If you don't understand the word, then you don't understand what the the idea the author's trying to portray. Yes.
That's right.
So what L. Ron Hubbard is dealing, he's dealing with a type of mathematics. If you understand on that level, he's dealing with a mental mathematics. He's taking aspects of the mind which is unseen and putting in the form that we can actually study the dynamics of how it works. I mean, to me, it's masterful. It's awesome. Now we're going to look at the same equation. We're going to hit it from a different angle to further the point. What if you're given the circumference? Can you calculate the radius? Okay, now the circumference is going to be the input. Okay, now this is where some of us might get hung up, but that's all right, because as time goes on, remember this time next year we're going to be doing trig and calculus. Okay, so we just got to be patient with. We all have these mathematical engrams that came from our childhood. Brother, am I pronouncing it right? Brother Makey?
Mikhail.
Well, I don't see the, okay, I see, oh, there's an L there. Okay, Mikhail.
Yes, sir.
Do you ever remember being in class and having to go up to the front of the board to work a mathematical equation or something? What happened when you weren't ready to do that equation?
You stumbled.
You stumbled.
You would
Now,
hesitate. Yeah.
Now, you have a background in Dianetics or the Scientology?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay, cool. So could we say that as you were walking up to that board, that was considered a re-stimulation?
Hell yeah. I'm so yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then you did it, and if you got it wrong, you already knew as soon as you turn around what's going to happen.
I felt like I was being judged because I'm literally going back there. I'm like, oh, I would feel like I'm being judged. I would feel defeated.
Okay, you feel defeated. So now, can you say that for a certain amount of time that affected your relationship with mathematics and science?
That's funny because I'm actually a forensic accountant.
So you overcame it though, but still.
No, we're still working on that.
Okay.
But yes, sir. Because it's funny. It's funny you should bring this up. When it was me learning algebra on my own, working out the formulas, not at the rate of the teacher, but at my own personal rate. My affinity began to grow because the teacher was teaching to the class. You understand? And they had a timeline where, as you know, a bunch of misunderstoods kept popping up. And as you know, if they're not cleared out, you're like, what? I don't get it. And yes, sir. Okay. And then you explain something to me because now I got a couple people I got ridges with. So yes, sir. Thank you.
Praise be to Allah. Good. All right. So now let's do the math from a different angle. So we know, so here's our input. The circumference is 24,196 miles. Here's the formula again. Our output this time is going to be the radius. So the question is, how do we do it in reverse? So 24,896 miles equals 2 pi r. Okay. So first thing you do is you have to divide both sides by 2 pi.
That's right.
Okay. And for those of us that don't get frustrated, at another time, we're going to go into each element of this to make this as easy as breathing. Okay. When you divide both sides by 2 pi, this is what the formula looks like. Okay, so you just take 2 pi on one side, and whatever you do on one side, the same thing happens on the other side, correct? Y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So that means if this equation represents mind and body, whatever affects one, the other. Isn't that what we're told in How to Eat to Live?
Right.
Okay, so whatever you do to the body, it's going to affect the mind. Whatever you do to the mind is going to affect the body, right?
So
Mhm.
as
Your-
within, so without.
As within, so like the
so
law of
below.
correspondence, okay? When you deal with advanced procedures and axioms, he goes a little more in depth with regards to this. But whatever affects one is going to affect the other.
He said that about the dynamics also, though.
Yes, yes.
If one is affected, all of them are
All
affected.
affected. And he also said that we're not just the 4 dynamics. He says that you and I are actually all 8.
Mm.
So what happens when you do this? What happens is the 2 pi over 2 pi, there's a rule in mathematics. Any number or any element over itself equals 1. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So now in the language of mathematics, what number represents God?
1.
1. Okay. 1 represents God, because really 1 is the only number that exists. All numbers are just combinations of 1. So there's one number that exists, but there's an infinite number of ways that 1 manifests itself, correct?
Infinite.
And every number is dependent upon 1, but 1 is not dependent on any number. Okay. Does that make sense? Does anyone have a misunderstood there? Okay. So the 2 pi over pi equals 1. So 1 you can remove from the equation, right? What else does that tell you about the number 1? The number 1 is hidden, but it's always present.
Omnipresent.
1 is omnipresent. It's no matter what equation you work, 1, you might not see 1, but it's there. Yes?
I think you just answered your question, Brother
What?
Lucan,
What was the question?
about being everywhere at the same time.
Oh, yes, ma'am. 1 is always present. And one is independent. Kul hu Allahu ahad. Say he, Allah, is 1. So the 0 and the 1 represent 2 aspects of God. The 0 represents no thing and everything at the same time. L. Ron Hubbard says it like this. He said the life force is a static which has no dimension, no time, no location, but it's all perceiving and exists everywhere, correct? That's the 0. The Saint Aquinas, I think it was Saint Aquinas said it like this. God is a circle whose center point is everywhere, but whose circumference is nowhere. No matter where you look, you find God, but you'll never find his limit. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And then the 1 is the first manifestation of the 0. So 1 represents an individual that's connected to the 0.
Right. Because
Right?
that's what I was thinking. The 0 is bearing witness to the power of the 1.
All right, now.
Creating something out of nothing.
There you go. So we're looking at the teachings. We're just using the mathematics to understand it. Sister Ani, I see your hand up.
I just thought that was a beautiful way of explaining the 1 of being hidden, and oftentimes in the way we've been taught religion is that God is invisible, unseen, that you cannot see God. And they've really pushed that point and given us the false concept of God. And it's not so much that he's invisible, but that he's hidden, but like you said, always present.
Yes, ma'am. And L. Ron Hubbard also says this in the Philadelphia Doctor Course. He says that's one of the tricks that are played in teaching that God is everywhere and invisible. He said that's one of the tricks that's used. Go ahead, Sister Angela.
You both got me thinking, Sister Anya and yourself, about what we talked about earlier with the mercy and something that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said when we look in the face of a Black man. See, that's he makes us pay attention to the omnipresence of God. God is only hidden because we don't know how to recognize it. We don't know how to calm ourselves down in order to see something clear to find him in it. Like you said, driving, you settled on the best part. Look what our lessons is teaching us. It's teaching us how to find God in the situation. He's there. If we keep in mind that somewhere in this big old traffic jam, this accident, this losing of the house, this losing of the job, this somebody talking about me, somebody cheating on me, whatever's going down in life, there's an omnipresent factor that God is in control. He's the center of it. It's just up to us if we can be clear enough to see it.
Clear enough. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. Go ahead, Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. I was thinking about how the Quran say He Allah is one. Say it. And I was going through something, and the sister, she called me and she said, say the remembrance of Allah is the greatest force. And I kept saying that, and it, I don't know, it lifted me out of the state that I was in. And it's something about saying that Allah is one. Say He Allah is one. And we're talking about the one is the hidden number. Say that. And it is something about affirmation, or even if you just not meditate, well, it might be meditating on Allah and remembering Allah is He controls the forces. You know, and you are a little Allah.
Yes.
You know, and you can control your feelings, what you're feeling now. You know, you can come out of that if you have that desire, or you can stay in it if you don't have the desire to fight. You know, so I was just thinking about that as you all were saying a lot, and how important it is to say it. I said, well, that's the only thing I saw where you say Allah is one. He's independent and upon whom we all depend. And I was thinking about that, why we have to say that, because another force is trying to come. So, you know, saying that brings us back to present time. Yes,
ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. It's funny to say that, because when I'm at work and the tones go off and, you know, we get a call, there's a certain part of anxiety that goes up working in the fire department. But then there's one thing I say to myself. I say that the call that I'm going to, Allah is not going to allow me to enter in a situation that I don't have the understanding of how to handle it. So sometimes we have to be put into a situation where we might not have enough faith in ourselves, but Allah allows us to be into a situation where we have to dig deep into ourselves and find a whole nother level of self.
That's right.
So sometimes when the call goes out, you know, my nerves get a little antsy just because of everything I've experienced over the course of the past 18 years. But I know that Allah's not going to put everything I've gone through, by Allah's grace, I have survived. So when you put Allah at the, understand Allah is that one that it might be invisible, but always present.
Right.
And there's no situation that's going to occur that's independent of his influence.
Teach that.
Okay, so in this equation, we could almost say that in solving an equation, the one way to simplify it is to find God in it. Could we say that?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay. Find the one that's in it. And once you find the one, it gets simplified. And that's the way life is. If you can find God in it, then it's not as stressful.
Right.
That's right.
Okay. So then what happens, this reduces down to 24,896 divided by 2 pi equals R. Okay, so now what do? All you gotta do is input the numbers.
That's right.
So if a teacher gives a problem and doesn't give all the data, then really the teacher is setting us up for failure, correct?
That's right.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
So then that means that whatever problem God puts us in, he's already given us the data to solve it, correct?
Yep. Yes, sir.
We just have to find the data. But we can solve every problem that exists in our life.
Every single one. Yes,
We might not be able to solve it all at once, but we can figure out a solution and then work towards it, correct? Go ahead, brother. I see your finger up.
Yes, yeah, you see me.
I see
I'm
you. Go
thinking.
ahead.
So my brain said, ask it this way. What is LRH's definition of a problem?
I've seen this before.
Or what? Yeah.
I can't recall it. I'm gonna answer it like this. He said this with regards to aging, but I'll apply it to what you just said. He said aging is our inability to confront action. And I'll say the same thing for a problem. A problem is really our inability to confront. But do you have do you have the exact verbiage?
No, that's interesting. That's interesting. So does that also take into consideration solve? And I'm putting that in quotes as solve.
Well, solve and salve sound the same, don't they?
Say it again.
Those from the South, you know what a salve is, right? S-A-L-V-E. That's the healing, right?
No, I didn't know that.
The word solve, S-O-L-V-E, and then the word S-A-L-V-E. Same root, same sound, just a different vowel in there. But solve and salve are kind of similar. Does that make sense?
That's correct, because in Arabic, when you change your mouth, the root remains the same.
Right. So look at it like this. Every time you solve a problem, what are you gaining back? You're gaining back attention units. You're gaining back more life force. The more work you do, the more problems you solve. Doesn't your tone go up?
That's right. That's right.
So now you're going, as soon as you do the work, L. Ron Hubbard says you're in tone 20. So as we solve problems, to solve a problem is like a salve, S-A-L-V-E, a healing.
A healing. Yes, sir.
And that's why the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, I got it right here on my wall, it says, you know, if you are poor, work. If you are rich, keep working. If you are burdened with seemingly unfair responsibility, work. There's a whole quote, but he's saying is no matter what your stated condition is, you work. Because to work, if working brings your tone up, as L. Ron Hubbard teaches, to tone 20, it's hard to be depressed and work at the same time.
That's right.
But just by getting up and doing something raises the tone level. Does that make sense? So where were you going with it? Where were you going with it, brother? I kind of took it off on a tangent, but
no. So no, you actually did. That was very helpful. Because as you were talking, I said, well, clear out the word or your understanding of the language of problem. Because, you know, we'll have all this mess, other misunderstoods going around.
Mm-hmm.
But and I said, well, and I'm actually, you know, as we're talking, I'm in the office now doing evaluation, and it wasn't a problem. Well, actually, what you said there, you know, if we're given a problem or we're put in a problem, the solutions are already there. And so as you were talking, and I was like, he's right. So I said, well, let me just make sure I understand what a problem is, because we may, you know, in haste, or that's why we say our prayer, we seek refuge from anxiety. In that anxiety state, we become aberrated, and we're like, you know, and I'm speaking for me, let me not speak for anyone else, you know, we can't make the decision. And so as you're talking, you're literally outlining concepts, you know, like a formula for me. You know, here's what's this, plus this, plus this. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. To take the sting off of problems, when you look at, and I use this as an example, I think everyone here has cooked something in the past based on a recipe. That recipe is a problem. When you gather the ingredients, you're finding all the inputs, and the finished product, what you cook, is the output, right?
Mhm.
So the thing is, there's a sting to the word problem, because with the word problem in psychology, you have what's called learned helplessness. So just the word problem itself causes a re-stimulation. Instead of the word problem, if we call it an opportunity.
That's exactly where I was going.
All we gotta do is just change the language.
Mm-hmm.
Brother Timothy, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I was just curious about what Brother McKill said. And I saw that in the fundamentals of thought, L. Ron Hubbard said that a problem is defined as two or more purposes in opposition. I thought that was interesting.
That's wonderful, brother. That's wonderful.
Praise is due to Allah.
Because an equation is really two expressions separated by an equal sign. And the problem is that you have to get one side to equal the other, correct? Does that make sense?
Wow.
So,
That's
so an equation is composed of two mathematical expressions separated by equal sign. And what you're saying is what's on the right is equal to what's on the left. So a problem is you have two opposing things and you have to find ARC between the two things. So Brother Timothy, that was right on point. Matter of fact, brother, if you could put in the chat the book and the page number, because I gotta put that in my arsenal.
Yes, sir. I don't have the page number. I think it's in the but I'll put in what I have.
Okay, just put in what you have, and I'll find it, brother.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sister Angela.
Yes, sir. So of course I had to pick up the problem book. First, I started with L. Ron Hubbard's The Problems of Work, because it involved both words, problems and work. And then I went to and I think skillfully he did not even go into the what he would call pathology. He went into confusion, but he did not go into problem, which is interesting to me. And it kind of interconnects to supreme wisdom and how the book was designed, especially the problem book. Though we are given these problems to solve every problem that we may incur in life. So to me, it's really is mimicking what the originator had to go through. If the originator did not look at problems as opportunities, everything would cease to exist.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have learned the behavior. The learned part of the behavior of a problem is looking at it as a negative and not an absolute positive.
Mm-hmm.
That's an absolute positive, mm-hmm. especially if we overcome said problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'm focusing more on perception,
mm-hmm.
how to look at a thing, right back to that omnipresent of the one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. And just to add some mass to that, I'll give you an example. Whenever, because I play chess like someone addicted.
Oh, you're playing and Savings Day? You
know I signed up. Of course I signed up.
All right, I'll be there watching.
And what I do is when I play chess games, especially when I play online, the games that I win, don't count. Because the games you win, sometimes you don't win based on your own skill. You win based on a mistake that you're well, in chess, I call it my enemy. That's just my mindset when I play chess. You're not an opponent, you're an enemy. So that's how I on chessboard, I just try to be a killer. That's just but when you win a game of chess, you don't always win because of your skill and your tactics and strategy. Sometimes you win because your enemy makes a mistake. But when you lose because of what you did.
Right.
So the games I lose, I actually print those off and I study those games. So the games I lose, you know, someone can get frustrated because they lose a game, but the games I lose, those are my opportunities for growth. And that's what a problem is. A problem is an opportunity for growth. Go ahead, Sister Anya. And let me just say this one thing real quick. It's 12 o'clock. From this point forward, we're gonna flow pretty fast because I want to finish up the concept. Individuals that are new, if you're interested, please put your email in the chat. I will put your email as part of our mailing so that anytime the Zoom meeting goes out, you'll get notification in your email. We meet on Sunday nights, Wednesday mornings. Just put your email in there. Sister Anya, you got the floor.
It was very interesting how the relationship between the words solve and salve. Salve says an ointment used to promote healing of the skin or as protection, and it brings comfort and ease, and it soothes. But I also looked up the definition for solve, which led me to other words, which included dissolve and solvent and solution. And so it says that a liquid in a solvent is a liquid in which a solute is dissolved to form a solution. And another one said a solvent is any substance, usually liquid, which is capable of dissolving one or several substances, thus creating a solution. So I thought that, I said, I know Brother Lukeman could really science up on that and give a dynamic relationship there.
Yes, ma'am, by God's grace, because when you talk about a solvent and a solution, L. Ron Hubbard talks about, and it's the main concept of the course called The Factors, which I'm currently going through. He talks about something called the universal solvent. And he says, once you understand what the universal solvent is, you can pretty much break down everything. And he says the universal solvent is admiration. So when we have admiration for different things, we produce two terminal points. And now when we admire, we're breaking down things. Now, on the level of chemistry, when you deal with solvent and breaking stuff down, you have what's called acids, correct?
Right.
Acid will break, one thing acids do is break things down. But what acid does is when you take an acid, and let's say you add it to a metal, part of the process that's taking place is there's a chemical change of the metal with a release of what's called hydrogen gas. So you're breaking things down into another state. When we admire different things in different people, whatever our viewpoint of that person, or if we begin to admire ourselves, because some of us don't take the time to really look at ourselves in a good light. If we look at ourselves with admiration, not in an arrogant way, and if we look at other people with admiration, then whatever our perception of that person is that we have, which could be incorrect, we begin to break down image that we have, and now we see them in a different light. And what does that do? If we don't look at ourselves and other people in a negative light anymore, and we begin to see things as they are, like when Jesus put the spittle on the blind man, if we don't see people as trees, but now we see people as they are, the end result is we have a better viewpoint of the individual. And then how does it affect our tone? Our tone goes up. And that's the main concept, keeping the tone level high, because we can't be high tone and aberrated at the same time. We can't be high tone and low tone. In mathematics, it's called the law of the excluded middle. You can't be both places at the same time, correct?
That's very interesting that you say that, because when normally if you're having an issue with somebody, or let's say reverse that, somebody has an issue with you and it appears that the two of you have some kind of discord or you don't get along, there seems to be some tension there. Normally, I've found that if you genuinely find, not giving a false compliment, but if you genuinely find something that you admire about that person, something positive that you can say to them in the form of a compliment or just an observation about them that is positive, it begins to break down that tension. And then you begin to form some, it starts the affinity with that person, and you can, whatever problem you had with the person begins to dissolve.
Just like admiration. Yes, ma'am. Someone had posed a question. There is a YouTube channel called Supreme Wisdom Meets Supreme Technology, and this is where I actually post the Zoom meetings at. So yes, today's Zoom meeting, which is part 2, will be posted today. Part 1 should have been uploaded by now. So part 1 should be available today. Part 2 will be available today. Go ahead, Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. Are you saying solvent universal? Are you saying SAL? Or are you saying SOL?
SOL. In chemistry, in chemistry, the
Okay,
universal solvent is water.
Okay, and I thought about the check procedure when people come into the mosque and they've never been there before, what we say to them to sort of help them to relax.
Yes.
You know, or we look and in something that they have on them or they dress or something to put people in a different state of mind instead of, why y'all checking me? You know, I don't have no weapons or things like that, because they're not familiar with our procedure. That's our procedure.
Yes, ma'am.
How we operate, our mathematical problem is equal safety. And that's why we do this. Yes, sir. That's what I was thinking as you all was talking.
Yes, ma'am. We're oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I said thank you, sir.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Yeah, what we're doing is we're using the same concept, you know, and my response to that might be, well, brother, I can see, because I always like to, I'll throw a joke in there just to get a person laughing, because when you get someone laughing, it's hard to laugh and be angry at the same time. I might say, well, so brother, I know you're not carrying no weapon because you look like you bench press me right now anyway, and you might get a little snicker. I say, well, brother, there are some people that carry weapons, correct? He might say, yes. I said, now, what would happen if they got in and did something? I said, but then we have to search everyone just so that we can be fair to everyone. So, brother, please don't be offended. I don't think that you have a weapon, but this is that we all have to go through. I had to go through it when I came in. So, brother, it's a way to break down that tension, and then have that individual, as they're walking into the main area, they're smiling. They're just happy to be there. Sister Anya.
Two things. One, instead of rushing through the last part of your presentation, could we make this a part 3, because the subject matter is so involved. I think to rush through it would be a great disservice.
Yes, ma'am.
And then number 2 is that there are some comments in the chat. Brother Eric posted in there
My chat up on the computer
about the word problem.
Let's see here. Okay, so here's what we'll do. Let me just finish this equation and we'll save the rest for part 3. Let me change that.
Okay. I can read what the definition of the problem is that he posted if you'd like.
Oh, that's fine. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, a problem is postulate, counter, postulate. Terminal, counter, terminal. Force, counter, force. It's one thing versus another thing. You've got 2 forces or 2 ideas which are interlocked or comparable of comparable magnitude, and the thing stops right there. Now, with these two things, one stuck against the other, you get a sort of timelessness. It floats in time. A problem is a postulate, counter-postulate resulting in indecision. That is the first manifestation of problems, and the first consequence of a problem is indecision. And then it also says an intention, counter-intention that worries the pre-clear. A problem is the conflict arising from two opposing intentions. A present time problem is one that exists in present time in a real universe. And the last one says something which is persisting, the as-isness of which cannot be attained easily.
Okay. Thank you for that. Now, as you were speaking, this is what comes to mind. One thing that L. Ron Hubbard talks about is one of the sources of insanity is the concept of the incomplete cycles of action. So when you look at that definition for problem, and you look at the fact that in our own universe, we have cycles of action that we have started that we have not completed. That means in the background of our own mind, we're thinking about, oh, I forgot to do that. I still got to get that done. I got to do that. I got to take care of that. And what happens is if we have all these cycles of actions running in the background of our mind, it has the same effect on us that hidden malware and viruses have on a computer that slows down the processor, correct?
That's powerful.
Okay, so the same concept with a computer. What slows down the computer? You have other programs running in the background that you don't even know they're there. And you don't even know the intent. It could just be other programs. It could be malware. It could be viruses. And what they do? Viruses and malware slow down processing speeds. They take files and they move them other places. They might change the font of certain files. They might change the structure of certain documents. The stuff we have in the background of our own mind does the same thing. So one of the things to get our sanity right is to look in our universe, look in our environment, and now all those cycles of action that we have started, just get those cycles completed. Go ahead, Brother Eric.
That's good.
You're on mute, brother.
Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum, family, and sorry for being late. I was observing every word that were being said very carefully. And when we come to the word problem, that's when it woke me up, really. I don't know if we all realize that Master Fard Muhammad gave us 34 problems to solve. And in those problems, certain of them say qualified members only, or registered members only, or something of that sort. And why? And if you realize also in the instruction to the laborers, he asked us to study, to qualify ourselves for position awaiting us. In other words, in the problem book, the more complex is a problem, the more education that we need to solve problems. And problems come in all forms, in all sorts. Because some of them are mathematical, some of them are social, some of them may be medical or something else. But all of that requires somebody to have studied enough to be able to recognize that. And the sister earlier mentioned it in a way that probably was bypassed. She said, in the Holy Quran, we know the prayer say He, Allah is one. Yes. Also, when a couple are having difficulties among themselves, what they say is a problem. So now, if we have to bring that problem to a position of salvation or solution, that means the people have to be in unity, they have to come in unity. say He, Allah is one. Who is Allah? We are Allah, we say. So that means everything that we do, we should always strive for that unity. And we say unity with Allah. How are you going to get that? Very easy, because Allah says also in the Bible and Holy Quran, mostly in the Bible, it said that he talk about unity. He created men and women to be united. So now when you're going into union, into a marriage, you say you are entered into union. And the Bible also tells us that God is love. So now when you're talking about unity, you cannot get to God until you get to unity. And when you get to that unity, you have find what you're looking for. But if God is love, right? So that means everything that we do, we have to do it with love. I think I heard it from you, but Lukman, you were talking about something very profound, because when we are, whatever we do, if we don't have that enthusiasm to do it, we are not in the direction of love. So that means love is encompass everything, because that's a creative force. The minister told us that love is not an emotion. So we have to rise above emotion to get there. So now you all are scientists, you go, you see the tone scale, it doesn't have love on it. To prove that love is not an emotion, because the tone scale deals with only emotion. And the higher your tone, the closer you are getting to that point you call God. Because you come to a point where you are really experiencing a life that others have not. And you can feel people before they can even understand who you are. So there is so much there, but it will take too long to explain everything, because that's the little contribution I could have done on that. There is so much more to do, to say.
Well, thank you for that, Brother Eric. Write down your thoughts so we can incorporate them in our next Zoom meeting, brother. Write down your thoughts so we can still benefit from that.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir.
Thank you, brother. Okay, Dr. Salam. Yes, sir.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I want to say first off, brother, wow. Sister Anna, thank you so much for inviting me to this. It's been so enlightening, I must say. I used to be a firefighter too, brother, many, many years ago. I left in '93, but your analogies about the fire was so beautiful to me. I could definitely relate to all of that. But I want to say, from listening to Brother Eric and just to the believers as you all are speaking, and the shorter correlation with what we have been given in the supreme wisdom and in the technology of Brother L. Ron Hubbard. And, you know, when we talk about wisdom, and I just want to say this because I went to the YouTube, thank you for that link. When we talk about wisdom, you know, even though the master called it supreme wisdom, it's because he saw the end stop, if you will, or the end result or the end product was wisdom, because we have not acquired supreme wisdom yet. We have only acquired supreme information, supreme knowledge, but it's the application of that knowledge that gives us the wisdom. And so through the mathematical theology that we're studying and going through, and with what you all are doing here, I can see that the wisdom will be more applicable. We will begin to experience supreme wisdom. And so I want to say thank you so much for putting this platform together by Allah's permission. And I'm looking forward to really diving deep. And this whole mathematical, these equations, I want you to know, you're making it simple for me, but boy, I tell you, I was one of those, I didn't do too well in math in high school, but like Brother McKell said, it was after high school that I started really understanding the concepts of mathematics and algebra. I did not know it in high school. It took me a long time before I got to that point, but thank you all so much. And I don't want to take up your time. Thank you.
Well, thank you, brother. Salam. Two quick points for you, brother. Think of a burning building as a demo kit for the aberrated mind. And then if you remember correctly, the first company, the engine company that goes in, you have an officer and you have a nozzleman, correct?
That's right.
That officer is the auditor and that nozzleman is the pre-clear. And that burning building is the pre-clear's aberrated mind. That's one way to always look at it.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you.
When you
Thank
see
you, sir.
people in a burning building, think of the pre-clear and the auditor inside that pre-clear's mind. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to try to land this plane. I won't go into what other people go into, but
Thank you
I just
so
want to
much.
finish this equation. We'll have some
Thank you
questions
so
and then
much.
we'll end it. But when you look at this equation, once you do the math, it comes out to 24,896 divided by 6.282. Okay. And when you do that, the answer is 3,963. But isn't that the number we started out with the radius?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we just hit that only equation from both angles. We change the input to produce the output. And what's this number? 3,963 times 2 brings us right back to where we started from, 7,926 miles, correct? Okay.
Yes.
So now let's summarize this and we'll call it a day. So summary. When evaluate an equation, if the input is unknown, then the output must be known. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If the output is unknown, then the input must be known. And if you read the chapter on diagnosis in Sister Tina, that was book 3, chapter 4, correct? That's basically what L. Ron Hubbard was saying. He says, when you look at the field of, I think he was talking about psychiatry, if you don't know the source of the aberration and you don't know what the optimal mental state is, then how in the hell can you even figure out the problem? You don't have an input nor do you have an output. And then when you understand that the optimal mental state really is to have the mind of God. This society that's ran by suppressives is not going to try to gear you in the direction of having the mind of God, because then to have a mind of God means that you now overpower the SP. And that's part of that's the first or second page of the chapter diagnosis in book Dianetics, book 1. That's what he's talking about.
Well, Lukman, that's book 3.
Book 3, chapter 4.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I keep getting my numbers mixed up. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So if I said solve this equation, you can't solve it as it is, because you have two unknowns. You have no input, no output. So how can you calculate change? This is an incomplete cycle of action that can't be solved. In other words, without knowing the source of something and the outcome, how does one classify and understand what is being studied? You can't do it. That's a whole mystery God concept. And he says this, and this is where we'll end it. He says the main disability in this classification system was that the classification did not lead to a cure. For there was no standard treatment and there was no optimum state to indicate when statement was at an end. How do you know when a person is ended? They should have the mind of God. Plain and simple. And as there was no cure for aberration or psychosomatic illness, there could be no classification which would indicate the direction which was to be taken or what could uniformly be expected of a case. So if you don't know the input, the output, how do you know what to do?
Right.
You don't. So basically what we just did was we used mathematics as a demo kit to give maths to what Brother Hubbard taught. We dealt specifically with book 1, but in time we'll go through all the different levels of the books, God willing. But when you look at it, and this is where we'll end it, an output, which is really a behavior, which we could say is a valence, We could say it's dramatization. And in the language of the teachings, we could say it's uncivilized behavior or savages, right? A savage is a person that has lost the knowledge of himself and who is living a beast life, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, if they've lost a knowledge of self, aren't they out of valence?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't they a suppressive?
That's right.
Okay, so L. Ron Hubbard and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad are saying the same thing.
Yes, sir.
It's using different language. It's no different than if I said K order S. Anyone speak Spanish? I said K order S.
What does that mean?
What time means? What time is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, but if I said Brother Eric, quelle heure est-il?
Ah, il est à peu près 12:30.
Right. So that French and Spanish said the same thing, two different languages. L. Ron Hubbard, Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, on these levels, they're saying the same thing, but they're using two different languages.
Yeah.
All it is. Placing a name on a condition doesn't mean that the condition is understood. So when you use, so look at the concept. Why does the devil call our people Africans? Same concept. Calling something by something doesn't mean you understand what it is.
That's right. There you go.
Okay. Misunderstanding sometimes hides behind eloquent words. Sometimes $30 words are used to hide your ignorance.
All to be understood in the words, Master Fred.
Okay. And I'm gonna end it. We'll pick up here aberrations. We'll pick up here, God willing, on Sunday. So with that being said and done, does anyone have any final questions, thoughts, concerns, comments, cognitions, wins, or corrections before we end it?
The only thing I think about this one is that the beauty of mathematics is that it allows you to get to the known from the to the unknown from the known.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Most definitely. Anyone else?
Brother Lukman,
Yes, ma'am.
the same way you used the firefighter as the demo kit for the benefit of Dr. Drack, the dentist, you mentioned that you would include that. So could you just briefly do the same thing for the dentist?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, let me see. Let me go here.
Get a good one. Get a good one.
Okay, here's one. Here's one. Okay. I'll do it on 3 levels, and I'll try to do this within 5 minutes. I'll make it quick.
Okay.
Whenever we neglect the body, as far as bathing, what's the first sign of neglect?
Well, smell.
An odor, right?
Yeah.
Okay, an odor is a warning sign that something that needs to take place is not taking place. And if we go past that time period, eventually what could possibly begin to happen to the skin or the body if a person doesn't bathe?
Okay.
We might
Decay
have
or fungus.
diseases or the skin or funguses and things of that nature, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If a person's breath smells like who did it and ran,
Yes, sir.
those of you from the South may understand what I'm talking about. But if a person's breath smells a certain way, what is that telling us possibly?
Decay.
That something's wrong.
Yes.
That something that's wrong could be either rooted, or the source of it could be in the mouth, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but sometimes bad breath is a sign of what's taking place within the digestive system.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because when stuff gets backed up in the large intestines, that odor will work its way back up and come out. And that's why sometimes when people talk, people really want you to get away from them.
Yes, sir.
You know, and you know, a pack of mints is not going to help because the root of it is not in the mouth, it's in the body. But for those that have the problem in the mouth, that what?
You know, it's like you full of it. You know, the person.
But that's for real. That's for real. That's for real. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. And please, someone bring me back to this point because I know I'll forget. Years ago, when I worked as a paramedic, we had to transport a woman who had tried to commit suicide she did try to commit suicide. She had stage 4 intestinal cancer. We had to transport her to a hospice location. And I remember I'm in the back of the ambulance and there was a smell that was the absolute worst smell I had ever smelled my entire life. So I pulled back the blanket to see maybe it's something, you know, because she had to wear a diaper. She was totally not coherent. And I'm like, there's nothing's leaking. I'm like, I didn't know what the smell was. So the individual that was driving the ambulance, I had to go up front and get some air because and what he told me was at that stage of intestinal cancer actually started to, her intestinal tract was necrotic. And what I was smelling was the inside of her body was actually rotting and coming out to her mouth.
Yes.
Okay, so I just use that as a way to understand that sometimes the odor is not here, it's all in here.
Yes.
Okay. But now the bad breath is a warning sign, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, if we don't heed the warning sign of the bad breath, eventually what will happen to the teeth?
You lose them.
You lose them, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there's always a warning sign. So now what happens? So now take the body as a demo kit and take dentistry as a demo kit. And now we use those same concepts and apply them to the mind. When we have a funky attitude, that could be a warning sign, right?
That is.
For some of us, our attitude gets funky when we're not making our prayers. So we have to look at ourselves when we get funky. We have to be aware of our funkiness and realize that this is a warning sign that this funkiness of mine is going to lead us to something else that might take place.
Don't forget the ethics.
Oh, and then we'll be out of ethics. Is that what you mean?
Yes, sir.
Most definitely. So there's always a warning sign. We can study the tooth and what happens to it. The tooth in dentistry, we can call that a dental theology. You know, for you, brother, give me a name one more time, brother. Go ahead. Mikhail, like the angel.
Yes, sir.
Okay. My background, because I was going to go into law, my background, my concentration was actually in forensic criminology.
Oh, wow.
So I was going to deal with forensics. I wanted to be Quincy. I wanted to go into a crime lab. But all that math and science, everything we study, if we put forensic theology, now we're actually, what you're doing is you're taking, as a forensic accountant, you're looking into accounts to find the aberrative behavior.
That's correct. I always tell people people think money, accounting is about money. I said, no, it's about intent.
Right.
That's what I'm discovering your intent.
You're looking for the aberration.
Your intent. That's correct.
You're looking for the aberration, because the aberration is not in the account. The aberration is in the person who was using the account.
That's correct.
The account is a manifestation of the aberration.
That's correct.
You're looking for the held down sevens.
That's right. Yes, sir.
All right. So I've babbled enough. I could do this all day. I love this. My tone is at about 1,000 right now. Go ahead, brother Dr. Wadud, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yes, sir. You had asked about any cognitions and what have you. And I was just going to ask if in the next presentation, as you were talking about the word problem, and Brother Eric as well, what about the problem that is not solvable, such as when there's a stalemate in chess. And I thought about a movie with Matthew Broderick, which is an older one, but he hacked into the computer and he
War Games.
things. War Games, yes, sir. And he had to teach the computer through the game of tic-tac-toe that there was no clear victory. And my mind gave me the question based on, we know that the enemy of God has no victory. And with them not having any victory, what that produces in those that have been reared under them, that how we look at problems. I know it, as it was said earlier, it's a state of mind, but when you have no clear path to victory, just how that aberration manifests itself. So if that can be a part of the next class, that would help me. Thank you.
Problems that seem to be unsolvable?
Yes, sir.
I will do my best with Allah's help to figure it out.
In fact, there is no problem that is unsolvable. We may not have the adequate knowledge to solve that problem. Because remember, in our lesson, we know that Master Fard Muhammad told us there were only 60,000 books, and of those 60,000, one is given out, two. So we are operating on one book of mathematics right now. So if we are operating on one book of mathematics, so the real mathematics we have not known. And the messenger told us that there are certain things that are buried under the desert, under the forest, and under the sea, because we did not want the enemy to have access to things. So that means this is a higher knowledge of mathematics. So in order to get there, so we have to also prepare our mind and our spirit to receive. We cannot go with the same funky attitude that we have. It has to be different. So once we get that find that new man in us, that's the time everything will be revealed. Because revelation is something that is slow. It's a slow process. It come a little bit today, and maybe 1 month later, another little piece of it come. And that's why Islam is mathematics. When you're solving mathematical problem, sometimes part of the solution is not even in the problem. Although the solution should come from the problem, but sometimes you have to go with something called a theorem,
Yes.
and sometimes you have to get to postulate, or some other, how to call this thing again?
Axioms, postulates, theorems, corollaries.
There we go. All of these things that are presupposed. And then when you attach them to the solution, you say, oh, that works. And that's the way it goes. So the same way, the lessons that we have, they sound easy, but we have to bring our mind a little bit further than what you get. Because mathematics, you cannot solve it just because you say, 2 + 2 = 4. It goes beyond that. So we have more and more to acquire. And from that acquisition, then we will get to the point where Allah wants us to be. But unfortunately, a generation like mine may not get there when that point is reached. But I'm simply happy that I could be part of that moment.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And I'll say this real quick so we can get to Sister Angela and then wrap it up. Right before you came on, Brother Eric, we talked about a doctor named Dr. Mona Harrison. Something I'm reading. Okay. There was a doctor I met years ago at Savior's Day, Dr. Mona Harrison, and she had mentioned that much of the wisdom, ancient wisdom, is actually recorded in our DNA. And these molecules are locked with histones. And she said, in the word histone is the word his and tone. And as you increase the frequency of your thinking, you actually cause these scrolls actually to unravel, and the ancient wisdom is actually already in us. And I said, how ironic is it for us to go through all these years of slavery and to be mistreated, and the very solution to the problems of the world are contained within the genetic makeup of the ones that were enslaved. That's a very interesting concept to think about. Sister Angela, and then we're gonna land it this time.
You cannot.
Inshallah. I think I'll start with the Matrix. The little boy sitting in front of Neo, bending the spoon. Somebody's
I got you.
Okay. Yeah, sitting in front of Neo, bending the spoons. Now it's me. But he says to Neo, when Neo tries it, don't try to bend the spoon because that's impossible. Instead, bend your mind. And I want not to forget something Brother Eric just mentioned. And I think I heard a few of us say this, and it's something that we're going to have to break up. When we say we may not do this and we may not do that, we begin a process of decay. I heard Brother Ishmael say at one point that we may not see the hereafter, and I seen him come back and correct himself. Because for the believers, the hereafter is now. The now is the most important place to be cognizant in, to be present in, because it produces active movement.
That's right.
So I'm going to use a pool table as a demo kit for any problem. So people don't know Sister Angela spent summers at her aunt house who had a pool table in the basement.
There's a pool shark. Watch it.
Well, yeah, most people don't see it coming until they play pool with me. And as a child, you try everything. You want to learn tricks, you want to learn, and I stumbled upon something. There's no such thing as not having a shot. It does not exist. There is always a shot on that pool table. I've tried so many combinations, and I believe the green and the roundness of these pool balls that you're knocking in, I know whoever came up with this, it was really some real mathematics in regards to how our perception. A pool shark always can move their perception, or somebody that's playing pool that can find these shots. They have the ability to put their perceptives on a variable. It's ever changing, and they can move and change with whatever is countering, just like you playing chess, Brother Lukman. Part of it is that you are predicting the move of your, as you say, enemy. So you're predicting the move of this enemy, and you stay moves ahead of them. I don't play pool like that. I settle in the fact of the matter, no matter what you do as my opponent. Once it's my turn, I'm going to always have a shot. So I had to apply that to problems. Like the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he read a letter from his nephew. It angered him. He went to sleep. He woke up. He read the same exact letter, and he saw something beautiful in it. So we have to master the art of perception. We have to step out of ourselves to see a grander design, to find again where we begin is where we end with Allah. Find him, not just us. Find him in said problem, and then we can solve it.
That's right.
That's a whole subject matter right there. All right, Brother Eric. Let's make it short and sweet so we can close this, we can land this plane. You're on mute.
I could not go without sharing this because we are taught that mathematics is Islam and Islam is mathematics. This is something that we have to ponder on to know how that equation comes about. Number one, it says, I would say that I said this time. Mathematics is not just a numerical science. It's involved result. You have to get the right result, because you may find many solutions that may not be right. But when you get the right result, now you know you have solved the problem. So now what about Islam? Islam also is interested in the result, because if I can prove what I do in mathematics, and how do I prove what I'm doing in Islam? So that means I have to find a solution for the problem and see if the solution is the right result, because the people are in need. So you step in with a predetermined idea. This is what I'm going to do to see how I can solve that problem for this community or for that family or for that people. So now, as you're working with it, you are certain part or component of that a problem that you are solving. And when you get the final result, you will find that everybody is happy about it. The same way you get your happiness when you solve a mathematical problem. So in this sense, we can compare that mathematics is indeed Islam, because every result has to be true, because they both use truth as their basic idea. I think we will leave it there.
All right, praise be to Allah. So everything we saw was supposed to produce case gain. So let me ask this. Is our tone higher than it was when we came on? Do we have case gain?
Yes, sir.
Are we all in present time? Because I think some of us traveled back and forth on the track.
February 15, 2023, sir.
Okay, it's 2023, right? Okay. So now let me say this before we close out. If you have any ideas or any thoughts on future concepts, send me an email. If there's anything specific you would like to see covered, if there's any specific levels of mathematics or science or chemistry or physics or whatever it is that you're interested in, put it in there, and I'll do my best to use that as a demo kit to illustrate some of the concepts that Brother Hubbard gave to us. With that said and done, make sure your email is in the chat. I'll put it on the list. We'll start part 3, God willing, on Sunday. And I will go ahead and we'll go ahead and close this out. Sister Angela, would you do us the honors, please?
You read my mind, absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. We're on the same frequency. We got the radios going. I hear you.
Yes, sir. Let us prepare for prayer.
Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the most holy name of Allah, the beneficent, the merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, the beneficent, the most merciful, master of this day of judgment now which we live in. Thee alone do we serve, and thee alone do we beseech for thine aid. O Allah, guide us along the straight path, the path upon thou hast bestowed thy favors, and not the path upon wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray if they've heard thy teachings. We thank you, Allah, for coming yourself, proving your power and raising two among us. Forever in your name, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, the honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Ameen.
Ameen. Well, family, those who like to chill for a minute, you're more than welcome.
Chill.
Assistant Angela, I have some. I didn't want to bother you and keep calling you, but I do have some information that came across with regards to.
Yeah, I remember you were saying it, and I thought you're supposed to be telling me about another episode of.
Oh no, it was something that I found in the tech with regards to the conversation we had.
Right. Okay. Yes, sir.
Okay. I pray Allah that we I know I'm floating on cloud 9 right now myself. I don't even know what to do with myself.
It's almost look, it's over 60 degrees here. Crazy in February.
In St. Louis, it's about 60 degrees, 61 in St. Louis. Yeah, I'm at tone 40 now, Brother Lukman.
Yeah.
Tone 40.5.
Praise be to Allah.
I know that's right.
All right, family. Inshallah, we'll see each other Sunday. We'll go with part 3. I'll see if I can dig around and with the help of Allah, find some more jewels find some more combinations to open up the safe to get some more riches.
All
right.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam.
Great.